Greetings. This goes out to all those who seek adventure, who want to take the path less known, and answers the call to high adventure, especially those in high school or in college who want to take a job other than the status quo. So it was 1993 and I was 19 years old. I had just finished my first year of college, and my parents called me and asked what my plans were for the summer for employment. They welcomed me back to their home. I grew up in the suburbs of Minneapolis. I'm thinking if I stay home, the traditional route would be perhaps being a swim instructor, lifeguard, camp counselor, work a kiosk at the mall, babysit, mow lawns, caddy. In that conversation, they had expressed that they had just spoken with friends of theirs who had a daughter who also went to my high school, but a year older, had attended University of Colorado Boulder. Through that work program they had, she discovered a opportunity up in Alaska to work at a salmon processing plant. She acquired a large mass of money and didn't spend much because of the remoteness of the village. When my parents mentioned Alaska, my ears perked and my heart skipped a beat. I've heard adventure. As you can imagine, Alaska still to this day feels that. So the steps were to fly up there, and before that I wanted to see if anybody else would like to join me. Pretty green as far as travel. I'd done some road trips with family and out to DC and to Florida. Gone to a mission trip in South Dakota. But as far as traveling on my own, is zero. So all my friends, they didn't want to go. They weren't interested, or they already had plans, or they thought that was too crazy, too outside their comfort zone. So I answered the call and took on the challenge. So the first leg of the journey was to fly from Minneapolis to Seattle, in which I had a layover and saw a cousin of mine who I'd seen for years, and it was just a great time to visit and see Seattle from a local guide, if you will, my cousin. After that, I flew up to Anchorage, and actually there was a student that went to my college, lived up there. So I got to see him as well. So what am I getting at as I tell this story? One, if you have the burning desire to travel, to go off the beaten trail, but you're the only one and you're scared because no one else wants to go and you don't know if you can go alone. What I have found is that there are many people like you, like me, out there. And when you honor yourself, honor that itch, honor that voice in you, you will meet other people out there, and they will guide you, they will support you, they'll assist you, and they will help you. You will be rewarded. As they say, fortune favors the brave. So I landed in Anchorage, then I flew to King Salmon, Alaska, and then off to Egget, which is the fishing village. Now, to get there, I had to jump on a 4-seater Cessna plane to land on the beach. This was in the Bering Sea, Bristol Bay. So if you look at a map, just about top of the Aleutian Islands, the tail of Alaska that breaks off to the left. When I landed on the beach, I was greeted by the manager and was told where I was staying. Now, flying there was hundreds of miles of tundra, uninhabited, basically just too difficult to put anything up. Lots of bears, and in this village there were plywood shacks. There was a processing plant, there was a storage building, there was a food hall, a snack shop, and accommodations for us college kids. Now, I was led to believe, and they were there, the guys that my parents' friend's daughter had met were there. So I kind of had an indirect connection, even though I really didn't know the girl much that had worked there previously. So when I walked in, they were all a year or two older than me in college. You could tell that they were educated, but they were embodying the full Alaska experience. So they had flannels and beards and looking pretty gritty. They had probably just worked a shift processing salmon. So we wore bibs and boots, and you were working with a lot of slime and scales, fish scales and fish, weighing them, processing them, scooping out the guts, all that. It was a pretty crazy experience. So when I met these guys, they looked pretty hardy. They were just polishing up their rifles because they were doing target practice from the back of the accommodations to the tundra. Inside this small, probably 20 by 20 room was 4 bunk beds. So 8 of us were in there, and it was quite an experience. They had a Nintendo system set up on a small little TV. They had a bunch of nudie mags, books to read, sports magazines, cards to play, cigars to smoke, and the local shop had beers that you could buy. The food hall was spectacular. They fed us really well. Lots of steaks, salmon. We worked a lot, and they fed us wonderfully. The meals were free, and the accommodations were free. And I worked sometimes 90 hours in a week. And so that would be time and a half. I made a lot of money, and I did not spend it on anything other than a few beers and what have you. In the off time that we weren't processing salmon, we were having bonfires occasionally, playing cards, playing John Madden, Nintendo, and swapping stories and shooting targets out in the tundra. That season ended, and word got out to some of my high school friends that I made a lot of money, and Alaska was safe, and I had kind of paved the way. So I had 3 other guys who were interested in going up there, but this time they proposed to drive up there from Minneapolis to Anchorage in a 68 Volkswagen bus. And why not? So the day we waved goodbye to our families and closed the sliding door and turned the keys to the ignition, I had short hair. Now, granted, I have short hair now, but I had a full head of hair back then. And by the end of the summer, I had grown it out and looked pretty hippie, if you will. It was a lot of fun. We played lots of great music, saw amazing sights and places along the way. But what really stood out was the first day. heading up towards, I think, Madison, South Dakota, somewhere on the border of Minnesota and South Dakota. The first gear blew out on the Volkswagen bus. So we would have to literally, just like you see in the movies, get out, push from the back, and some of us on the side, as well as a driver, so that just fast enough to get the Volkswagen bus up to speed to pop it into gear. And we hear the clutch pop and jump in on the side and close the sliding door, and off we went. It was a very beautiful scenic ride up to Alaska. Once we got there, to our surprise, they had hired more people. They had built these makeshift tents, and the summer, that season, the salmon run was not as heavy. So we did not make as much money at all compared to the season before. So there was a lot of downtime. However, I did end up dating the fisherman's daughter. Because the season ended up earlier than normal, I was able to find another job to work at Princess Lodge in Cooper Landing, and was a groundskeeper, watering the plants, flowers, what have you. And in my off time, I would camp and hike up into the mountains and go fishing in the Russian River. So it turned out to be a pretty good consolation prize. So what am I getting at here? Again, if you feel the call, go. Because from that time on, everything I did whether someone wanted to come with or not. I acquired this independence, this confidence, this faith that told me, if you want to go do it, you will be supported. You will find others like yourself, and you will take the road less traveled, and you will be rewarded for this. The following summer, I ended up connecting with those guys from Colorado and living with them in Boulder, Colorado, and Denver. I worked the inaugural year at the Coors baseball field as security in the rock pile. And then also found another job working at a car dealership in which I learned how to drive stick. It was a great summer. And from then on, there were other places I went, and that's another story. So I encourage you to check out online. There are many types of ways to enjoy your summer other than the traditional stay-at-home where you grew up. You could apply to a ranch, be an au pair, a camp counselor. You could be a nanny in another country. You could move to another state, perhaps seek out your relatives, friends afar. There are lots of opportunities out there. So answer the call. I encourage you. Go for it. Thanks.